but we're gonna get it together here.
Hello, Natasha, did you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, thank you. How are you?
How am I?
I'm good.
There we go. I am so sorry. My computer just lost it there, so we had to go ahead and make a quick change here. Give me one more second here.
All right.
And Emeka, we're gonna start the Zoom right after I get my screens here. Mute. Happy Monday, everyone. Sorry, I had a little technical difficulty here with my computer, so I'm gonna get the slide back up. Okay. Maybe I'm not. Emeka, I might need you to have to put this on the screen, unfortunately. I apologize, but I'm not able to pull it up in this view. I don't have this. Okay. Emeka, that's you pulling it up? Okay, I'm gonna try one more time to see if I can control it from my own computer, but it's not allowing me to share this screen. I just had it up in my computer. I think it's a shorter. Maybe let's see. Okay, sorry guys. So yeah, Emeka, I'm gonna have to just tell you the next slide, unfortunately. So if you wanna, I don't have it fully on the screen. I can see it. Okay, and then we can go ahead and get started. Thank you, guys. I apologize about that. I know we have a lot of people on the call this morning, technical difficulties here with my technology. So just wanted to welcome you guys to the Zoom. My name is Natasha Robinson, NMLS number 332079. And I wanted to go ahead and jump right into the PowerPoint presentation for this evening. So we already have heard about the City of Chicago launching the new grant today. And the grant is up to $70,000, depending on which zone that you are in or that your property is in. So you can be in a zone A or you can be in zone B. From my research, pretty much the entire Chicago is in a zone A or B. And we can go to the next slide. So pretty much each zone is in zone A or zone B. Zone A, your client can get up to $70,000. Zone B, you can get up to $50,000. And it also not only depends on the zone, the amount of money that they will receive, also depends on the actual income and household members that they make as well. Because we just ran a scenario for one situation. The client could make up to $63,000 with a one-person household, and they would only get $10,000. So in this particular down payment assistance program, you are going to have to do some matrix, or your lender's going to have to do some matrix, because it's not just very simple. Like the IDA grant was very simple. It's $15,000, a certain percentage of the purchase price. This grant is a little bit different because the amount you qualify depends on the amount of money you earn based on the amount of money in your household. So if a person has 7 people in their household, they're going to qualify for more money than the person that has 1 person in their household. The City of Chicago is going to be doing the down payment assistance through 2 investors, or through 2 CDIs, and those CDIs, neighborhood loans and neighborhood housing and TRP, they're going to be the ones accepting the applications to approve the clients. So when the clients go through orientation, and I know everyone has been going crazy today to get their clients to apply, you cannot apply until you are under contract. So you have to be under contract on a property to submit an application. From my understanding, all the applications that have been submitted today that are not under contract will be denied. And don't worry, because you can actually reapply once they actually find a home and they are under an executed contract. The city is going to have those third-party agencies look at how many people are living in their household, how much money does the household make. So unlike some grants, they are going to look at the income of the other household members. So once they go through the process, they will have to have a pre-approval from a lender. They will have to have the 8-hour course complete. And then they will also have to have an executed contract. And that's when they'll go in and determine what zone the client is in. And I'm going to go through the PowerPoint, and then I'll open the floor for questions as well at the end of everything. Next slide. How much assistance is available? The 80% AMI below is a certain amount of money. So each zone has a different AMI, and my team member is going to come in here as well because we're going to run some scenarios for you. But each zone has a different average median income, which they pretty much qualify. So just to give you an example, if you had a household of 1 person and you were in an AMI of 80%, then that income limit is $68,050, right? $68,050. And this sheet, which is on the city's website, I know it's hard to read. I'm going to send it out. You can already pull it off the city's website. It'll break that down for you. So your lender has to be able to run this. But if you want to try to figure it out for yourself as a client or for a realtor, there is a household size. It goes up to 10 persons. And if you are someone that is 80% of the AMI, 1 person is $68,000. But if 10 people live in a household, then it's $143,900. So there are a list of different income ranges depending on the household. If you are in a zone where you qualify for 150%, of the household income, then at a 10-person household, which a 10-person household is a big household, they can make up to $269,000. But if it was just one person, it would be $127,650. So just wanted to give you an idea where each client, depending on how many people are in their household, is going to determine what they qualify, the amount of the $50,000 to $70,000 they qualify, depending on what zone they are in. The city of Chicago does have the website. Everything on the homegrown page is accurate. You just kind of have to know how to use it. And we're going to do another Zoom and where we can do live one-on-one scenarios, and we'll try to pull a few up today if the computer will act right for us, where we can show you how to physically put in an address, and then you can run the client's eligibility based off of how many people are in their household, and as well as how much money do they how much money can they make based off the zone and how many people that are in the household for the client. Next slide. What is the HomeGrown Program? So the HomeGrown Program is pretty much a program through the city of Chicago. I've been a loan officer for a very long time, and this is the first time that I've seen this much money in one particular grant. We can stack grants all the time, and we can also stack this grant. The HomeGrown is a bond grant, so it cannot be stacked with any other bond grants. IDA, Access Home, or just IDA in general is a bond grant. So I've seen some social media posts from agents that say we can stack it with the IDA, and we cannot stack it with the IDA. So that is a known fact. But if you have a grant that you want to stack it with, like the University of Chicago has a grant for their students, or if there's another grant that's not funded from the bond funds from the city of Chicago, you can stack it. This grant is just for the city of Chicago. I did receive an email on that as it relates to the suburbs. We do have a lot of other grants in our portfolio, but this is a city of Chicago down payment assistance program. You can use this for down payment. You can use it for closing costs. Once again, depending on zone A or zone B, it is up to $50,000. It is a real grant. It's forgivable in 5 years. There is not an additional interest rate applied to it, and there's really not any additional fees. Once again, we don't get to see that that often. The CMRP is like this. You know, the CHA grant, when we had it, was like this. But IDA has their own interest rates. Chinoa has their own interest rates. Equity Aid, you know, our internal program, we have our own interest rates. On this particular program, you will be able to get whatever the regular FHA rate is, you will be able to get that for your client for this particular program. After the 5 years, it's basically forgivable for, you know, a 60th at a time. So if you pay after 3 years of paying for everything, that grant will be half forgiven. I'm sorry, 2.5 years, it will be half forgiven. And then the other 2.5 years, they would still owe. So if they sold their house in 2.5 years, we would divide whatever they received. If they received $50,000, they would not have to pay the $25,000 back, but they would have to pay the other $25,000 back. This grant is designed to help Chicago families become homeowners. Another question that you're going to have is, do you have to be a first-time home buyer? The answer to that question is you do not have to be a first-time home buyer. You just cannot own a property before you close on this property. So if you sold your property last year, this year, 3 weeks ago, you can buy a new property and get this grant as long as you don't own another property today. If you inherited a property, if you are just on the deeds to your mom's house, you still pretty much own a property. So if you are on a deed to any property at the time of this grant, you will not qualify for this grant. But if you were on the deed and you came off or you sold a property, you will qualify for this grant. Most of our other grants, you do have to have not owned a property for 3 years. But for this one, you just cannot own a property at the time of this particular grant. And I'll go to the next slide. Who qualifies for this grant? You must be in the city of Chicago. So it must be a city of Chicago property. It must be your primary residence. This year rates did get a little, you know, they've been fluctuating. So we did bring back the ARM rates. You cannot use an ARM rate on this particular program. It is definitely a fixed rate program, and the max debt to income ratio is 38%. The buyer has to contribute 1% of their own funds, just like our IDA down payment assistance program. What that means is that if you're purchasing a property for $300,000, no matter how much grant money you get, the buyer will have to contribute 1% of their own funds. If their earnest money is $1,000, they will have to come to the table with at least $2,000 in this particular transaction, no matter how much down payment assistance they get. The max DTI, and I know everybody is crying about this, but this is the most important bullet point, you guys. The max DTI on this particular program is 38%. I will be honest with you and tell you, I would say that is yes, that is tough. So I would say that is 10 to 15% of my clients that their debt to income ratio is 38%. And with that being said, another caveat is just that the rental income, if you were to purchase a 2-unit property, if they need that income to qualify, that's going to count, number one, in their income. But once again, we're trying to get to 38%. So not to, throw any, negativity onto the program, but they really want borrowers to be able to afford and keep their homes. And, I see some financial advisors on the call, like James Morris, and, they want you to be at 38%. They want clients to be at 38%. We know in our world, we don't see it as much, but the city wants the clients to be able to stay in a home, really be able to afford the home, and, keep that home as well. So with that being said, I do think that's going to be a tough part of this particular grant. I've been going through all my pre-approved clients today to reissue pre-approvals for the grant, and we don't have a lot of clients that are at 38% at the moment. So definitely keep in mind that the debt to income ratio on this is 38%. We have so many grants. So, I think the city has definitely motivated and created a movement to get buyers in the market. Hopefully we can get some sellers to do some listings so they can put some properties out there, because we definitely have a large buyer pool, but you do have to keep your client at that the client does have to maintain the 38% debt to income ratio. I could see some of the questions, and the one that I did just see is, can I explain what that means on debt to income ratio? And that's a very good question. So debt to income ratio is your debt versus your income. And we have what's called a front end ratio and a back end ratio. The front end ratio is your debt for your mortgage versus your income, where your back end ratio is your debt versus your mortgage against your income. So sometimes people will have a lower front end ratio and a higher back end ratio. The only way your ratio can be flat and be 1% is if you have no debt. So if your only debt is your mortgage, that is the time when your front and back end ratio will equal the same number. So with that being said, definitely keep that in mind on the debt to income ratio. The buyers do have to contribute 1% of their own funds, and it has to be a HUD approved home buyer education course. So in the past, you've received links from loan officers and myself, and we give you that nice 45-minute online. Most of the times it's free. Some of the time it's $75. The city is requiring for you to come in an in-person 8-hour course. It has to be HUD approved. I won't be the one to say it must be in person. There is a link with the housing agencies on it. You must talk to them to make sure that they are approved for this program. So they must make sure that they are approved for this program prior to taking the class, because you don't want your client to take an 8-hour class and it doesn't work. I will tell you that I do have a client that sent the cert over, and that home buyer counseling agency is not in the mix. So we cannot use that. And she was pretty upset. So my team member Colleen did just drop a link for you guys. That is the link. So that way you can have your clients go there. And just so you know, the housing agencies have different dates. NHS started their program before the grant came out. They started that week, and now they're on their second week this week. I know Resurrection Project is starting something this week. NHS had something Saturday. So just because one person doesn't have the class doesn't mean there is not another class coming. I know for a fact that NHS started their 4-week, they're doing a 4-week, 2-hour, and then they have a new one starting in July. So if your clients or if you're a client and you missed that class, keep looking until you find a class that works for your schedule. So that way you can get the home buyer cert done as soon as possible. In my opinion, I think that the home buyer cert is going to be tough as the classes fill up now that there's so much press on this particular grant. I feel like they're going to fill up fast. So get in a class that works for your schedule and make sure you take the time to do your due diligence to find a class that you can get through as quickly as possible, because you have to have the 8-hour class. You are going to see a screen if you haven't applied already, or if your client hasn't applied, you have to have a pre-approval from a lender, the 8-hour class, and a contract. Once you have those documents, then you can go onto the website and you can apply for the agencies. There are 2 different agencies. They asked today on the call that you only apply for one. Don't try to apply for both agencies, having, which one is going to get to it faster, because it's double work for the agencies. So either you're going to apply with the one or the other, but you do not need to put any applications in if you are not under contract, and you only need to put in one application. If you own a home now, you cannot utilize this grant unless you're going to be selling that property, and you will have to talk to the representative at the agency to confirm that they will allow whatever date you're closing and whatever date you're buying. They're going to issue you a certificate that they're going to give to me. And then once they issue that certificate, I am basically going to issue a pre-approval and move forward with your purchase. The agency is going to do their due diligence on their end to make sure that you qualify for a certificate. I'm not going to be the one to do that. What I am going to do is utilize that certificate and help you get to the closing table on time. Next slide, Emeka. Someone just asked, where do you take the class? You can click the link that my team member, Colleen Shemansky, just put into the chat. So you definitely can click that link. And then once you click that particular link, they will have a lot of options available for you. And then you can choose the option that makes the most sense. And we kind of talked about the process already. How does the process work? You're basically gonna, yes, I'm sorry, I'm reading and talking. Yes, you can attend the class prior to going under contract. You can attend the, you want to get the home buyer in the pre-education course and the pre-approval done as soon as possible. The reason why you want to do them kind of both at the same time, and I mean, a pre-approval takes, 6 to 48 hours, right? Depending on your particular profile. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're pre-approved and your debt to income ratio and your income is going to work, because all of the down payment assistance programs don't require the 8-hour certification. So once you meet with your lender and you get your pre-approval, then you'll know if it makes sense for you to take the 8-hour class. But there will never be anything wrong with you taking the 8-hour class, because it's going to teach you about your process and just make you a better home buyer. So it won't hurt you to take the class, even if you end up not going with this particular grant. There is going to be a limited amount of the grants available. But like I said, I don't think it's going to be like it was when MMRP, which was another great City of Chicago grant that came out. That particular grant, everyone was able to get a certificate, even if they didn't have a house. So because you have to have a property under contract, I think that this is going to allow the opportunity to last a little longer. But once again, I am just giving you my educated guess from being in the industry and working these programs a lot. Once you complete the homebuyer education, you're going to work with a realtor. You can work with any lender and you can work with any realtor, and then you're going to go under contract. Once you go under contract, you will apply through NLS or TRP. Those are the only 2 organizations that you can use to apply for this mortgage. You do not apply with Natasha Robinson for the $70,000. I can issue the clear to close and utilize their funds, but they have to give you a certificate in order for me to be able to apply them to your actual loan, right? And NLS is also known as NHS, just in case that's confusing. I know they do reference them in 2 different categories, but NHS, NLS are the same, and then TRP. They will not let you apply until you have the pre-approval and the education and the contract. So just giving you guys the heads up on that. Emeka, you can go to the next slide. Pre-approval, you know, you guys can, if you're not pre-approved at the moment, you can always scan to get a pre-approval. We're going to send this PowerPoint out as well as instructions on how to do that as well. And Mecca, you can go to the next slide. With this loan, you guys know that I am a renovation specialist, so I'm going to always ask about the renovation part of every product and program that the city offers. And with this program, you can combine it with a 203K and a home style renovation, as well as the home choice renovation. And we do also have VA renovation. Come on, let's clap it up, clap it up. However, there are some restrictions. The max is $50,000. They don't want it to exceed a certain percentage of the purchase price. In addition to that, you can't do any structural repairs, meaning you can't remove any beams. You know, if you're tearing a roof off and putting a roof on and you're replacing joists, that is definitely structural. So if you're doing a smaller renovation that doesn't exceed 2% of the purchase price, then I'm sorry, if it doesn't exceed 2% of the purchase price, then you can do the renovation part of it. So a small renovation, I actually have a client that was under contract that already does qualify for this particular part of it. But keep in mind that you can use renovation. It just has to be a renovation that's going to most likely be completed within 30 days. I mean, within 60 to 90 days. And next slide, Colleen. And you do have to have a licensed contractor, and the licensed contractor has to be licensed with the city of Chicago. So your representative at the agencies, they are going to look into that as well, but they do have to be approved through the city of Chicago, but they had to be approved with the city of Chicago for us anyway. So that's just kind of a due diligence that we do on our own as well anyway. And just to kind of go over just a little bit more details of the grant, it is fully forgiven after 5 years. You know, unlike some other grants, if you guys are in the IDA Access Home, that grant is not a down payment. That grant is not a grant. It's a down payment assistance, and it has to be paid back in 30 years. This is fully forgiven, which is an amazing thing. So we love to see when those come up. You must maintain your house as a primary residence for 5 years. So if you purchase the property and you're a house hacker and you're going to move out after 24 months, you will be on the line to pay back any unused part of the grant with 0% interest. So like I said, if you live in a home for 2.5 years and you receive $25,000, if you still have the home, but you move out after 2.5 years, then if you received a $50,000 grant, you are going to have to pay back that $25,000 of unlived in or unlived out part of your grant. You cannot rent or lease the property. That is considered an investor at that point. So they're willing to give you these funds from the city, but they want you to live in that property for 5 years. And it's okay if you don't live in a property for 5 years. It's just that they will not forgive the lien that they're going to put on title until you turn in the paperwork to show that you lived there for 5 years. So at the end of your 5 years, there are going to be some paperwork that you're going to have to submit to show that you fulfilled. They'll probably ask for a driver's license. I'm unsure of exactly what they're going to ask for. The person that's approving you with the city can let you know that information. That's a good question. NFMS, you can only purchase a 1-unit single family condo or a 2-unit. You cannot purchase a 3 to 4 unit property. We do have other down payment assistance that does allow you to purchase the 3 and 4 units, but this particular grant is a 1 or 2 unit property only. If you guys get into this grant and you want to refinance, we can do the refinance for you. However, we cannot do any cash out and you cannot take a line of credit. So be very careful after you close on a loan product, because you don't want to do something to your loan that's going to call your grant due because you actually went in and cashed out. So if you wanted $50,000 and you took $50,000 out, well, that's going to put you in a position where you have to pay back the money that you already received. And yes, you can also get a townhome. And I know we have a lot of questions, so I'm going to get into the questions here in a second. I can see some of them when they come across the screen. Whenever the repayment is required, if you sell your home, you know, before the 5 years is up. If you sell it after 5 years and 1 day, that is your funds, 100% of your money. If you transfer ownership, meaning you're on the loan and, you know, you paid the house off because you hit the lottery, right? But now you want to transfer the ownership to someone else, and you're not the only sole person on the loan that's the primary residence, then you will have to pay any unpaid part of the grant back. If you move out of the property, like we mentioned before, if you rent it out, or if you cash out or get a home equity line of credit. So just keep that in mind while you're making your strategy of what your goals are for your property and for this particular grant. But this particular grant is 5 years. And I will tell you, this is one of the shorter timelines. When I first started doing grants about 10 years ago, it used to be 5 years. Majority of the grants now are 10 years and 30 years. We do have some other ones that are 3 years that are much more expensive, but 5 years is a short time span based off what I've been seeing in the market for these particular grants. Do we have any more slides, Emeka? Got it. So with that being said, of course, you can apply if you're looking to purchase a mortgage. I'm going to go through and start with the questions in the chat. Let's just see here. Okay, here we go. You asked, do we have to be under contract before applying for the before the class? The answer to that question was no. Agents do not have to attend the class. The class is for your buyers. Any of my agents that are on the line that don't own, you know, this is your time. I always encourage my agents to own property, because now you can go through this process and you can be a testimonial for your you can be a testimony for your clients. So you definitely do not have to attend. I see Colleen answered that. Where can we take the class? The link is below. Let's see. If you have a contract and something happens and it's canceled, will they allow you to find time to find another property? Unlike grants that the city of Chicago has in the past, if you lose your contract, you will have to resubmit for the new contract. So every certificate is address driven. So if you go under contract, you will, and it's canceled, you will have to resubmit. And, you know, if funds are available, then they will reissue. So keep in mind that you won't be the only one who lost their contract. When we had the Cook County grant, we actually probably closed about 25 people off the wait list, because many people do end up canceling contracts and things like that. If you have a contract and something happens and it's canceled, will they allow you? We just answered that. Did this program apply to multi-units? Max is 2 units. They can purchase a 1 or 2 unit property, and yes, that can be a townhome. If you apply for the grant and your contract falls apart, will they allow you time to find another one? We answered that. What areas are recommended for the maximum grant amount? So like Colleen said, zone A is the zone that gives you the maximum grant. And I have spent a little bit of time to play with this. Zone A is definitely in Bronzeville and many other parts. Believe it or not, Woodlawn is zone B. And how they're getting the zone is they're basically doing a census tract data, and they're determining what each person qualifies for. You know, the zone is determined by how much money people make based off the census tract. So the government collects information on income, and that is pretty much how they determine what zone each person is in. It's a good time for a second time. Is it a good time for a second-time home buyer who purchased over 10 years ago, as long as they stay in residence for 5 years? That was old school, Miss Wheeler. So this particular grant, that's normally, you know, sometimes that normally works, but in this one, you cannot be on a deed to any particular property unless in order to get this grant. So if you are on the deed to any property, you cannot qualify for this grant. If you sold a property or that property came out of your name, then you would qualify for this particular grant. Yes, I'll send out the recording. What if you've taken a class with an approved agency? What is my next step? So if you've taken a class, Ms. Knox, you want to scan to complete the loan application. You want to find a realtor who can assist you with finding a property. And then once you find a property, you want to go under contract. Through my pre-approval process, we will run different scenarios for you. And we'll let you know and confirm that you qualify for the grant, or at what purchase price that you qualify for the grant. So that way you can know what methods to take for your realtor, so you can know what to look for. Where is zone A and zone B? I'm going to see if I can, so Colleen just put up this link. I'm going to see, but if you guys look at the link in the chat box from 633, if you can click that link for me, I'm gonna go ahead and just, my computer's acting crazy today, but I wanna just see if I'm gonna be able to click it. Can you guys see my screen? Oh, no, you can't see my screen because Emeka's is sharing screen. So I'm not gonna be able to pull that up for you on this particular in the 80% is only 68,000. But if they're in 150% AMI, they can go to 127,000. And then if they're a 2-person, and then they can go to 145 at 150%. So this is the mechanical part of the grant that's a little different from what we've seen before, but this is very normal for the city of Chicago when they're doing the household income. So they've always done this for other programs. So this is one that we're going to have to utilize this part on. And when they go to the agency, this is what the agency is going to be looking for. And Emeka, if you can just scroll up just a little bit so they can see, or scroll down just a little bit so they can see the up to the people in the household. So you can see 2-person, 3-person, and 4-person. So when your client, or if you are a client on the Zoom, the amount of people that live in your household will determine how much you qualify for. But be very careful, because if you put a certain amount of number of people in your household and they're 18 years or older, they will have to provide all their income or affidavit stating they have no income. And even though you're using their body count, you also have to use the income. So they're going to add all the household income. As you guys have seen on our other grants, the IDA Access Home, we only look at the buyer. This particular grant, the agency is going to look at the household income. So yes, you can go up to 240,000 with 8 people, what they call it, persons on the grid. But you'll also have to make sure that you provide the income. So if of the 8 people, 5 of them have jobs, and now the total income is 400,000, you still may not qualify. So we have to follow that grid. And Ernest, Colleen let you know that that zone was Zone A. So just wanted to see if you guys have any additional questions. I'm okay. I don't know if everyone is disabled, Emeka, where they can't come on mute. But if you guys have any questions that you want me to answer, this is pretty much the gist of it. I know a lot of individuals did come on late. This grant does allow you to go up to 2 units in property type. They do have to meet the Zone A or Zone B requirements. They don't have to be a first-time home buyer, but they cannot own any additional property. The debt to income ratio is 38%. They must complete a 8-hour approved housing plan. They must complete an 8-hour class, home buyer class, in order to move forward. And they cannot apply for this grant unless they are under contract with the city of Chicago. They need a pre-approval, they need the 8-hour class, the certificate, and then they also need a contract to submit to the city. This grant does not apply to the buyer, it applies to the property. So if they go under contract and that contract falls through, they have to reapply with the city for a new certificate for this particular program. There is no special interest rate with this loan. It's fully forgivable over 5 years. After 5 years, and any unused part of the grant, they would have to pay it back at 0% interest. So those are pretty much the cheat points for you on the grant. You can go to the links that we've provided for you to look up the property address. So that way you can know if you're in Zone A or B. Zone A, you'll get 70,000 and you'll have the higher loan limits. Zone B, max is 50,000 and you have slightly lower income limits. It appears that everyone, no matter the income or the zone, will qualify for at least 10,000. But in order to get that 30, 40, 50, 60, $70,000, they do have to fall into that income range on this particular grant. Other than that, that's pretty much the gist of it. So I know everyone is telling their clients to go apply. Everyone that applies that is not under contract, your application will be denied. Don't worry, you can apply again when you obtain a contract and get to the next steps.
Hey, Natasha, we have a hand raised.
Okay. Do you know how to let them in or let them answer the question?
Go ahead, Renee.
Good evening. Thank you so much. This is a wonderful presentation. My question is regarding the duplexes. If a person decides to purchase a duplex and after 5 years they want to convert, let's say, a basement into another dwelling unit, is that possible without being in penalty since it's outside of the 5 years, or no?
So I'm not because I don't work for the city, I'm the type of person where I'll never tell you that I know. based off my experience, the answer to that question is after the grant is fully forgiven and closed out, I don't think they're going to be checking anything other occupancy. I don't think they're going to be checking anything other than occupancy after you close. But they can ask their counselor, you know, that question. But from my experience, once they close, they're going to ask them for due diligence as relates to, can you show me an ID that you lived there for 5 years, or give me some type of utility bills maybe to show that you lived there for 5 years. So most likely they're going to ask them for their driver's license. I don't think they're going to call out an inspection or an appraisal. There's no guarantee on that, but I haven't seen that in the past. Lauren, you can go ahead. I saw you come off and come right back on. The mute.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. So I just want to clarify. I know you said that if someone owns a home, they won't qualify. Now, let's say I have a client that's in the middle of selling their property, but want to buy another property. Does that mean they still don't qualify, or, you know?
So that is my question for the city tomorrow. For my interpretation, as long as you don't own a home at the time of the close. So the question is it the time of the closing, or is it the time that the agencies complete the certificate? So that is a question that I have. So I'll get that back to you. But normally, when you have a situation like that, we'll allow you to do it on the same day. But in this particular situation, I don't know if the requirement to get the certificate is that you can't be an owner at the time of the certificate. So I do have that question going in the morning, so I can email you back. I just wanted to get any additional questions that came about tonight so I could ask them all at one time. But that is a question that we've had since this morning to find out, can they buy and sell on the same day, or does it have to be sold before they can get a certificate?
Understood.
So I'll get that answer for you, and I can email that to everybody that was on the Zoom today.
Thank you.
No worries. Armand, you had a question? You still on mute, Valeria.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. This is Armand. I'm usually working with buyers that are moving from Chicago to Indiana, but for my people that's sticking in the city, the question is, one, like, what type of buyer profile are you seeing that's working for so far for the people that you said do qualify for it? Because I'm thinking, I don't know, a high school student graduated with no debt and a Instagram account or something. But outside of that, the next question I had is, do you have any like savvy tips that you've seen buyers use that would take a otherwise heavy DTI buyer and reconsolidate some of that debt to get their DTI down to that 38% mark?
Got it. Well, we know we're from the reins of deal structuring, which is a very important thing in this business. So with that being said, like, I have a client right now, we just are structuring his deal because Ida doesn't work for him because Ida doesn't like the condo, but Fannie likes the condo, right? Fannie is one of our investors. So what we're doing now is he was getting a gift from his mom for $10,000 in the other situation. So we're trying to use that $10,000 to pay off the debt. Because from my understanding, you can't, not from my understanding, but you cannot use the grant to pay off debt. But he's using the funds he would have had to put down to pay off the debt. And we're putting the entire grant down. So we're trying to get him to 38% in the fact that he's not going to have mortgage insurance and he's not going to have his current debt. So we are trying to work to structure the deals the best of my ability. And in addition to that, I have another file right now where I have a high income earner. She's buying a 2-flat for $400,000, and she doesn't need the rental income to qualify. Her DTI is at 33%. So she's one of the ones that like fit in the 15%, and she had an 8-hour certification. I'm like, I don't know what's happening right now, but she definitely just slid right into the qualifying box. But if I add the rental income, like if she tries to go higher, she's going to be above the limit unless she goes to unless she goes to zone A, right? So we are structuring the deals to see how we can make them work because, 38% is low, but $70,000 is a lot. Like, like $70,000 is like 30% of some people's price. Well, in the market from 10 years ago, but I'm just saying it's a lot of down payment assistance as well. So a lot of people are not going to qualify to answer your question because of the debt to income ratio. But we do have other grants for the ones that it doesn't work out for. But I do think it's going to work out for a lot, or it may push a movement where clients are now going to go under their means and purchase homes so they can get the grant and not push the bar so hard because they rather have the lower mortgage payment and the free money versus getting their dream situation and going all out on their first purchase. So I guess it's only been live for since this morning. The call was at 11, so we haven't really seen it, but like I said, I have about 4 people who do qualify, but I have a lot of people who don't because they need to go to 50, and we can go to 56.99. So to go from 38 to 56.99 is a big deal. And while you structurers are on, because I know I have a lot of agents that really push to get things for their clients, they cannot have a non-occupying co-borrower in this particular situation. So you can't bring income from somebody that's not going to live there to make them bring the ratios down. So keep that in mind as well. And I'll tell everybody, I know they weren't doing the income-based repayment plans for the student loans. I have been seeing them again. So getting an income-based repayment plan, if you're heavy on the student loans, can help. Because with FHA, as long as it's at least $1, we can use the $1 instead of the percentage of the balance. So that's another way they can help bring the debt to income ratio down as well. But like I said, we have CMRP, we have IDA Access Home, we have our own access. And, some people might only qualify for $20,000 anyway. So I definitely think that if they don't qualify for this one, we have something for them that they can qualify for. Yeah. And then Katrina, I know you were up, so I'll go ahead and answer your question. Emma, did you have any more questions? We good? Okay. Katrina, how can we help you today with your question?
Hey, I just wanted to know, does this work with the CTO program for CHA? And is this also available for people that want to buy vacant lots?
Okay, so I'll answer the first question first. And just so you guys know, I am a huge fan of the CHA program, not just because I'm a preferred lender. I became a preferred lender because I closed so many of them, not even knowing there was a such thing as a preferred lender, maybe about 6 years ago. But the CHA clients, they come in, they have really good credit. They know they have to save their $3,000. They're going to be getting their mortgage paid for a long time. And I actually teach them, like if they're ones that's going to get the 15-year, where they're going to pay it for 15 years, I teach them how to pay it off in 30 so they won't have a mortgage after the 15 years. But you can combine this program. I actually have about 7 of those that came in today. I think they just had a new orientation. And that particular program, we can use the voucher as income and we can give them the grant. And just so you know, they are pushing this program there, so they already know about it. So they already know about it, the process, everything. The instructors of that program are amazing. And I'm just being honest with you. I work with a lot of different programs, and those clients that come from that program are really well educated. They're prepared. They're going to do their 3-lender shop and all of that good stuff. But yes, we can provide this program. Now, CHA used to have another grant that they gave them where they could either get the money or have their mortgage paid, and then they came out with one where they were giving them both. So oftentimes we can stack different grants as long as they don't come from the bond funds. Is the only time we could stack them is if they're not both from the bond funding. So to answer your question, yes, we can do those all day. And I know, Crystal, we answered your question. Did anybody have any more questions? CHA is the Chicago Housing Authority. They offer funding for individuals that are currently receiving public assistance known as Section 8. And they, instead of paying the landlord mortgage, they put them in a program to pay their own mortgage so they can have a free and clear property and they can pass on wealth instead of that Section 8 voucher. Back in the day, clients in the CHA program passed on their voucher to their children. Now they're giving them the opportunity to pass on debt. I didn't answer Crystal's question about the vacant lots. This program is for properties that are already, you know, ready to go. If it was a vacant lot, they would have to have a rehab, which would be more than $50,000. So this is not for vacant lots. Sorry, I didn't answer that question. Oh my God, Brittany, you asked the magic question. Is there a credit score? There is no credit score requirement. How did we forget that? So no credit score requirement on this loan, but lenders have credit score requirements. So, you know, you definitely have to at least have a 580 for a regular FHA. But if you are one that is putting 10% down, you'll never hear me market this, but we can do a 540, 10% FHA loan, but they do have to put 10% down on that particular program. So as long as they fall in the lender's limits, the agencies don't have a credit score requirement, which is amazing because you know you got to have a 640 for that. You got to have a 640 for the IDA loan. Rodessa, go ahead with your question.
That was one of my questions in the chat, if there was a credit score. So I guess somebody else won the prize for today, if there was a prize. The other one is 8630 Indiana. Does that qualify? If so, I have a beautifully remodeled property that I would love to invite all of you realtors to show your clients.
Go ahead with your realtor plug on the Zoom.
Yes, baby. That one is a beautiful unit. It's a split level, 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. Can't beat it. They just dropped the price. Come on, show it.
Come on. Let's do some real estate. So that's zone B, right, Connie? That's zone A. So that's zone A. So congratulations. I don't have any prizes to send you, but your property does qualify for zone A. So someone that wants that property can get up to $70,000. Katrina asks, what is the VA credit score minimum? VA doesn't really have a credit score minimum. So it's just considered what they get approved through the system. We did have a client that was approved. He had about a 560. VA is going to look at the entire portfolio. VA also has very high debt to income ratio qualifications. Like I have a client right now approved to 64%. Of course, he's not going to qualify for this grant. But VA is very different. So I always tell my clients that you want to look at each person one by one and run them through the scenario. And just to give a cheat sheet out there to any lenders that may be listening, VA often does not get approved on a soft pull, but the hard pull normally works for VA. So keep that in mind as well. But you have to just take a VA person and run them through the system. And you can even do a manual to a 64 back end on that VA as well. So VAs, you know, I tell my veterans all the time, they have the best bandwidth. But if you're trying to do those high debt to income ratios in this particular program, it won't work for this grant. Tara, what's your question? Tara, you got to come off mute.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so my question is this. Okay, so you say that there's no credit score requirements. So what if a person who's interested in this program have like a collection or a bankruptcy on their credit? Can they still get approved?
So, I mean, we do. So just so you guys know, the FHA guidelines, we can do a bankruptcy, you know, after 2 years of discharge. We can do a bankruptcy after 1 year of online payments. We could do a foreclosure after 3 years. If it was a death of an immediate household owner, we can do we can get an exception on a foreclosure if they had like a severe situation that makes sense for FHA. Normally it's the death, like if a husband was paying the mortgage and he passed away and the wife got behind, but now she got it. She never worked before, but she got it together, got a job and brought it back to life. There are situations, but the answer to your question is that as long as we can get them approved as a regular FHA loan, we can combine the grant with it.
Okay, so you answered the question about the bankruptcy. So what if there's no bankruptcy, but they have collection? Can they still get approved?
In any FHA loan, you can still get approved with collections. If the collections are over $2,000, then we take a percentage of the balance and use it towards the client debt to income ratio. But if the collections are a charge off, FHA doesn't care about the collections if they're charged off. And we don't have to charge for them any additional debt for that either.
Okay, okay, all right.
Yep. Mark, I know you had a question.
Yeah. Are there any seller contribution limits or requirements?
No, so you would basically just follow the regular rules. And that was a really good question, because with the IDA and the current down payment assistance programs that we have available right now, you have to qualify for the down payment assistance normally doesn't cover everything. So you are able to have the down payment assistance and still negotiate the seller to pay credits. On this particular grant, they don't really want the client buying down the rate. They don't want to use these funds to buy down the rate and pay off debt, which we know we can't pay off debt. So if you have a closing cost credit, FHA max is 6% of the purchase price. Of course, not to exceed the actual closing cost. So if you're in a $600,000 purchase, I'm not going to have $36,000 in closing costs unless they're paying an outrageous amount to the rate. So with that being said, in this particular situation, 6% FHA, 3% conventional, 4% VA. So if we needed to buy the rate down to help us get to the 38% debt to income ratio, you can use the closing cost credits to buy it down, but not the grant to buy it down. Condos are fine, yes, Kayshana. Oh, nice to meet you, Patrice. Again. Renata, did you want to come off mute, or do you want me to just answer your question? She said if her daughter's in her last year of college, can she get a pre-approval? For this particular grant, this wouldn't apply to her unless she has a job and she qualified for today. But we do have parent loans where you can get a loan for your child while they're in college, as long as they're in a accredited university. You can purchase a home for your child for when they're at school. When they graduate, I'm actually doing 3 loans for Howard students right now. Coincidentally, has nothing to do with my child at Howard. But they have graduated and they have a job offer. So with that job offer, I'm able to pre-approve them. And then as long as they close, within a certain amount of time of the job starting, I'm pretty sure 60 days, then we have some situations where we can get them into a mortgage as well. So we have a lot of different programs. If someone has a offer now, they can qualify for the grant. But if your kid is at school and you're trying to purchase it for them, or they don't have the income to do it on their own, there can't be any co-signers or anything. It has to be the person that is buying, and they have to live in the primary. Jenny, you had a question?
Yes. Hi, how you doing? My first question is, for this $70,000 grant program, the income depends on your household size, correct?
Correct.
Like if you make more than the 80% of the median income or something.
It sounds like an algebra problem, don't it? Yeah. It sounds like an algebra problem. But yeah, if you make 80% of the if you're in zone A, it's different income requirements in zone B. So while you're looking at properties, you're either going to be in zone A or you're going to be in zone B, right?
Okay. So I was looking at properties in the Woodlawn. I don't know if that's zone A or zone B. I guess I'll figure that out.
No, we can help you. So Woodlawn, I checked like the 64th and Greenwood area. That area is zone B.
Okay. So my next question is how do they determine, if you just say how many in your household, how do they determine like how many dependents you file on your tax return?
Y'all see that question she gonna ask me on the live Zoom. So you have to report that to so basically you're gonna have an application with the city, and then you're gonna report it. You're gonna report your information to the city, and then they're gonna go through that process with you. I'm not for sure if they're going to ask you for your specific tax returns because I don't require tax returns. But when you come to me, you're just going to have a certificate. So they're going to go over, I was told they're not going to look at your assets, but they are going to look at your income, and they're going to ask you how many people are in your household. And I know from the last rent that we did, they're probably going to make you sign a notarized affidavit, you know, with the documents, but you'll get through that process. So to answer your question, I'm not 100% sure how they do that part, but it's totally separate from our transaction. Just like if someone was in the CHA program, they just come with a voucher and it just tells me that I can go, right? So that's what is gonna happen for you. So when you're talking to them, they're gonna have you fill out a form, and they're gonna say how many people you live in your household, what's their ages, and then you're gonna provide that information. And then they're probably going to give you some disclosures to sign. But I would confirm from them. I don't like when people answer questions for me, like as the lender, so I don't want to answer them, but that will be between you and NHS or TRP, whoever you decide to work with. But the amount you qualify does, up to 10 persons, does determine how much income you can actually make. And if you want to, you know, if you do an application with us, we can look at it for you, and then we can go over that with you and tell you where you would need to fall, like where you fall based off of how many people you have and all of that good stuff.
Okay. Awesome. So I will do. Thank you so much for that.
No worries at all. I'm trying to see if we had any more questions. Will pre-approval amount increase at all now that the grant is here? I think so, Thomas. I think that, you know, if clients can now put more money down, it's going to give them a higher amount. Now that we have more money, I can use the sellers to help me buy that rate down a little bit. I can use that closing cost for that, and I can use my grant just for the down payment. I see Kayshana showing her shots out. Let's go. She has a condo on 42nd and Langley, Zone B and A, a 2-unit, 121st and Eggleston. You know, definitely. I said we're gonna have to get like a Facebook group so agents can put their listings out so we can do business with each other and get y'all listings sold, because look, we know it's a shortage of properties and clients are going to be looking to move. So if you guys get a pre-approval with Natasha Robinson on it, know it's already pre-underwritten, ready to close, and we do give value in our community. So keep that in mind while you guys are making your decisions for all these offers coming in. Somebody else has a listing at 852 North Christiana. It's a legal 2-unit. Does that address qualify? Ebony Lucas with her listing at 6450 South Greenwood Avenue. It is Zone B. Colleen, can you look up that 852 North Christiana? Let me see. They coming through. Yeah, North Christiana. 852 North Christiana, 2-unit. Zone. That's Zone A. Congratulations, FMS. You are in Zone A. And I think that with these grants on, if you guys need us to complete, to provide you with your zones and what they qualify for your listings, you can email me, and then I will send you over kind of what you qualify for and all of that good stuff. Any additional questions? No worries, Miss Reed. Well, yeah, I think that that's pretty much it. Like I said, we're gonna record this and send it out. I'm so excited. As of Thursday, Guarantee Rate Affinity did become a preferred lender. If you know anybody else that's looking for a Zoom, my team member Janita Herndon, she's awesome and amazing. She does grants as well, and she is having a Zoom tomorrow at 12 o'clock. So if you feel like you need more information or you want to hear it from a different voice, we definitely can get you that link over, but we just want to get the information out to everyone that we can, so that way you guys can have the facts and know pretty much what is needed for you to get your clients to the finish line. Like we mentioned, they need to apply, they need to do their 8-hour counseling, and then you have to find them a contract. And if you have any specific questions, as your clients are going to have specific scenarios, because as we heard our other client, someone may have 5 people in a household, some people may only have 1. No, we cannot count animals. I had somebody ask me, can I count my cat and my dog? I know they're expensive, but unfortunately we can't count them as a person. But other than that, that's all I have for you guys. If you guys don't have any questions for me, I just want to make sure I got all your questions. And yes, you can do an approval anytime. It is a soft credit pull application. I don't pull your credit unless everything works out and you guys want to move forward. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. You guys have an amazing evening. I appreciate you for supporting me, and I look forward to closing as many loans as we can with this grant. Okay, we're dropping all the links in one more time. Make sure you save the links, and thank you guys for joining. Let's close some deals, guys. If they wasn't ready to buy, everybody's ready to buy today. $70,000 would definitely encourage people to get in the game. If they didn't buy in 2024 and they lost 40,000 in equity, they can get it right back in this grant. So those people that bought and can't buy today maybe have a lower interest rate, but these clients have 50 to 70,000 to apply to their actual purchase, which is pretty cool. All righty, well, you guys have a great night. If you need me, call me anytime. We're always one call away. Have a good night.